So I wanted to make a video this morning, led by the Holy Spirit, on forgiveness. Now, forgiveness, we're going to touch on some points that you may have never really, maybe you did think about this, maybe you didn't. We're going to get into it. So the forgiveness aspect has to do with, let me give you an example. A long time ago, when I first got saved, God gave me a job at a hospital, a children's hospital. I was working for this lady called Nancy. Nancy was an overweight lady that you can tell had some trouble with personality, had some trouble with inferiority. You know, she maybe got picked on growing up, etc. So she was almost like an outcast. However, she was the boss. And so now, you know, you carry those things that happened to you once upon a time by other people and this and that. And now it's almost like we heard about those stories of police officers. You know, now it's like payback time to the people that they get. You know, they hurt them and they abuse them, all because they have unsettled issues in their heart. And so the police officer does certain things. Well, Nancy, in my position, I was told by my staffing agency at the time, saying that Nancy, you know, she was like, you know, not to mess with her. So I worked for her for about 2 weeks and everything was going fine, and I paid her a compliment and it cost me my job. The compliment that I paid her was in front of another individual, and she wanted to set the score and settle this. The story was that I complimented her and I told her, "Oh, you're not that bad. You're not that mean. I heard things that you know, mind you, I was more so immature back then. I wouldn't say that now, but you live and you learn. I meant it as a compliment. She fired me because I told her she was nice and she wasn't that mean. I was told that very same day, don't come back to work tomorrow, turn in your badge, everything like that. So I went home and I was a little distraught by that because I was scratching my head. I said, but I did my job perfectly fine. I don't understand why I got fired. Now, all this time later, you know, as you grow in wisdom and understanding, I want you guys to understand, let's pause right there and understand that in every situation, in every bad break, there's a lesson to be learned. And so that's really what makes you out to be a great success in the end, is that all these lessons along the way is like a staircase and you're moving up, you're learning stuff. I understand that it hurts, it stings, it makes you bitter, it makes you sad, all this other stuff, but I learned something in that lesson. And the lesson that I learned was that you should not point out people's insecurities, because it may you know, turn back and bite you. She wanted to make a point. The judgment call on my end was to pay her a compliment. How she took it was that if she was considered as soft in front of her colleagues, that's pretty much her reputation, was that she was like this. So she got respect out of that. She got like people to fear her out of that. She owned that space. That territory for her was something that she enjoyed, because mind you, she probably lived a life that was the opposite of that. She was probably picked on, etc. And now she has a space where she's respected, feared by, and she didn't want me with my little petty compliment to mess that up for her. So she wanted to make a statement, and the statement was that I am mean, that I am strict, okay, and to respect me. So she fired me on the basis of that. Now, what are my takeaways? Well, my takeaways is forgiveness. She didn't think about how it made me feel, my family, my paycheck, how I was gonna get by off of a compliment. You're gonna fire me? I could have took that and I could have held a chip on my shoulder. I could have, you know, and I would have done all those things actually had I not known Jesus. But Jesus was working on my heart and he was letting me know the insight. Some of the beautiful things that happen when you have Jesus in your life is that he gives you insight. He gives you wisdom and understanding on how to look at things from a different perspective. So he allows you to put yourself in their shoes rather than in your shoes. So once I did that, and once I put myself in her shoes, I was able to see that she's a hurt individual, And along the way, she's hurting other individuals. And until she forgives, she's gonna hold that pain and that sorrow and that burden and that stress and all those memories of people picking on her and her being bullied and all that stuff. It grieves her, you know. And the bandage is, I'm gonna get back at people from a place of superiority over them. That's just a bandage. It's not dealing with the symptoms. It's not. So she will live a bitter life her whole life until she deals with the core issue. The root issue is what's making her that way, right? So it doesn't matter how much money she has. A person like that can't be happy because what lives inside of her is that bitterness. And so it doesn't matter what you have, you're gonna be bitter. And so we have to forgive, and forgiveness is cutting off the flow of the memory that have power over you. That's what forgiveness is all about. It's breaking the chains, the shackles. It's getting you out of bondage, out of slavery, out of imprisonment to that memory, to that pain, to that suffering of whatever they did to you. Whether it be abuse or sexual molestation, whether it be somebody murdered a family member of yours. You know, there's a rumor in my family that, you know, my dad was murdered by his brother. It's not confirmed, but there was a back and forth there in terms of them not getting along, and then all of a sudden my dad showed up dead one day, and it was like, it was a very, very suspicious. They didn't do an autopsy, and there's a very you know, it's one of those, like, you squint your eyes and you look at the person that didn't like him, and they were always like fighting and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden he shows up dead. It's like, yeah, supposedly, you know, he died in his sleep, you know, but we think that he snuffed him with a pillow, you know what I mean? So long story short, I'm using that because I had to deal with that as a son. You know, I didn't have a great relationship with my father, but it didn't matter. He's still my dad, and it still felt in my heart that was a hard thing to go through. And so, you know, I could hold resentment. That's an option. However, if I hold resentment, you have to understand this part of it. I hold it. It means I'm carrying it. That means I'm living with it. That means I'm walking through life and all my situations and circumstances, all my conversations that I have with people, and every interaction I have, I'm holding that, and that's going to spill out into the conversation, into my view of life, into how I practice my behaviors and living life. All that is like spewing out of me because of that resentment, and that resentment can take over, and you can grow into a very bitter, angry, rageful man that wants to get back at the world. And the cure to all that is forgiveness. See, forgiveness, a lot of people think about it like they don't deserve forgiveness. But forgiveness is so that you can let go of the offense. And once you let go of the offense, you can get healed of the offense. That person's living their life. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about what they did to you. They went on with their life. You may not even be a memory in their mind. You may bring up, hey, you remember when you did this to me? And they may not even remember it. That's how you know it's not about them, it's about you. Because whether you forgive them or whether you don't forgive them, they went on with their life, right? They're not suffering, you're suffering. So forgiveness is to deal with that, and to say, you know what, you're in my life, you're making me recount this moment over and over again, and I don't want to do that because it's just tormenting me. So forgiveness is that application that you put on that makes that go away. So it's for you, it's not for them. Okay. So I had to forgive Nancy for firing me, for paying her a compliment. But I did it because I understood that everything that I just told you, and I also understood that when I put myself in her shoes, I understood this woman is hurt. Her insecurities are pouring out of her, and she doesn't know how to deal with it all. I'm sure she went home that day, and her conscience was wearing wearing on her, telling her, man, you know, he didn't deserve that. Like, she struggled with that. You can tell. Certain people, you could just look at them and tell certain things. So that's the video. I just wanted to share with you guys a few pointers on how you can get in other people's shoes, learn from your situations. Don't be a victim, but learn from the situation and grow from it. That's what the whole thing is about, because nobody is born into knowing everything all at once. You go and make mistakes, you fail, but you when you get back up, you know, you're less likely to commit that same action again. You're like, well, I'm not going to do that again. So you're growing as an individual. Some of the greatest success stories in life are people that failed 1,000 times. They just didn't give up. They kept going, and then they became the superstar that you know them to be today. But if you knew their story, you would say, man, it's not that you were born out of your mother's womb as a superstar. It's that you just had this mentality and this heart that had to do with, okay, I learned something. And it's your attitude. It's the attitude behind everything. So, yeah, it's just perspective. Just check, you know, be nice to yourself and understand that you're in a process and that you're going to get to your destination. And that in of itself, just what I said right there, is a perspective that will propel you to get back on your feet and move forward again, because it's the right perspective. But the wrong perspective would be, I'm a failure, and deeming yourself as a failure, deeming yourself as unworthy, deeming yourself as invaluable because you fell short, you know. And again, you're learning.